Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. The slant.
Yeah, but isn't this the unplugged version? I don't know. I think it's the unplugged version.
All right, Paulie, let's go.
The year was 1983. The date was December 4th. And the film Scarface from director Brian de Palma and screenwriter Oliver Stone was released to the world, starring Al Pacino, Stephen Bauer, Michelle Pfeiffer, Robert Loggia, F. Murray Abraham, among others. It was not an initial success. In fact, it was technically a flop. It had horrible reviews. It actually made about 46 million at the end of the day, which did not cover its costs. It was lost for a generation. It wasn't until the advent of the VHS and the hip-hop community of the 1990s where you saw a resurrection, a resurgence of interest into the film Scarface, and now it's legendary. It's considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest, gangster crime films of all time. Okay, so let's get to it. Our special guest hails from the UK. I love him. In fact, I'm a member of his channel recently, even though I've been checking out all his videos and his unique perspective on things. Biting, smart, funny, edgy. And who knew one of his favorite movies is this one, Scarface. I'm of course talking about Mr. H Reviews.
That was quite an intro.
I could have gone on and on and on.
You're very kind, good sir. You're very kind. And yeah, no, you are right. You are a member. You participated on my member call-ins. It was cool. I enjoyed it.
That was fun. I was like, why haven't I been a member sooner? But and we celebrated your birthday stream a little while back.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
So I appreciate you making the time for this, but we talked. The origin was what was the origin? Was it Latino films in general?
Yeah. So you spoke about wanted to get me on your show, and I was like 100% absolutely happy to. And you were like, Latino films is the focus, which makes perfect sense. And I was like you'll need to educate me, because that's like I'm a little bit blind to some of it. Absolutely, I'm not afraid to say that. But then I was like, I can't remember what happened. I think either you mentioned it or I mentioned it. I can't remember. But I was like, oh yeah, Scarface. Well, that sort of actually falls into that. And it is one of my all-time favorite films. It's just it's a masterpiece. Like I think that is actually the title, because I did a retrospective review of it, and I think that's the title of my video, is that it's just a masterpiece, and it is an absolute masterpiece. It catalogues the rise and fall of man, greed, power. It's just so
especially
good,
especially during the 80s.
But it is everything. It's quintessentially 80s. The performances are astounding, even though they are bombastic and over the top. They work.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. The soundtrack. I love it all. I absolutely. It is genuinely one of the. It is one of my.
And it's a movie that almost didn't make it. It almost wasn't made. Of course, like a lot of these things.
Yeah.
Didn't have the original. I think the actors got swapped and the production people got swapped with Treat Williams and Sidney Lumet going to Prince of the City, vice versa. But the whole thing with making it Latino and making it Cuban, that's what brought Oliver Stone in to write the script.
I think, but it works as well. That whole, Cuba, communism, and then, and it's that it's. I mean, we'll obviously get into it more and more, but that is the linchpin of everything. Like, and it works so well, is that it's a man escaping communism, finding capitalism, and being encapsulated by it. Realizing that that's what you can have, and he wants it all. The world is yours, and it's that, and it's just so good, good. Love it.
And before we bring in our other special guests, we'll just say also too, to this day, it is still revered. It is still quoted. I mean, it is so influential, bro.
It was in pop culture. Like it is everywhere. I think that it's referenced absolutely everywhere. That scene in the restaurant again. We'll get to it, but just so good, so good.
We're in for a treat. Let's have some fun, and we're bringing on. Oh, there he is from Midnight's Edge. Everyone, is it Tom Montana or Tony Connors?
Montana. First you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the girls.
Yeah. Again,
do you know what I'm saying? This is not true.
1,000 eardrums have just cried out in pain.
Sorry about that. No, I'm so glad to be here because everything that Mr. H, our good friend, just said about the film is 100% true. And not only that, I would argue it's a story about a man fighting for his soul. And by the end of the movie, he loses it.
I like that.
There's a lot to break down with this film, and it's a very tragic story overall. Mm-hmm. And again, I can't disagree with anything you guys have said. And I know it was very controversial at the time that it came out, and it lived on through the Latin community, and not only that, through the rap community as well. The hip hop community adopted this film quite a bit. I mean, it's just one of those movies that won't go away. It's probably De Palma's best. I mean, he's done a lot of good ones, but I mean, it's hard to top this one on his list as far as I'm concerned. As far as performances from Pacino, right up there with Godfather. I mean, it may even be better.
So good. So good.
Well, and De Palma at that time was the gun for hire. He was the guy at the last minute because he had a flop with Blowout. And it also was the first movie that he didn't cast his wife Nancy Allen, which that led to their eventual divorce. Was Scarface, was the filming of Scarface, because it was supposed to be directed by Sidney Lumet, and then there was all kinds of trouble with the city of Miami, the portrayal of Cubans, Amarelitos. I mean, this is before they even started production, guys. So what had happened is eventually they filmed the majority of the movie in California, and there are sites and corners of Los Angeles where I could say that's where Tony and Elvira, that's where they did blow together at the BMW shop. I know that corner. That's right on Wilshire and La Brea. That building still stands.
God damn.
So let's jump right into it. Let's go right at the beginning of the movie where they do disclaimers because they had to. That was part of the deal with the PR of Miami, as far as the Marelitos, the kids, the Cubans coming over. Castro has unleashed the prisons, and all these bad people have come. And they had to say, although they did, a majority of them were good Cubans. That was part of it.
It's such a nonsensical sort of statement to make. Like, obviously, people are well aware, But again, I think that falls down into kind of what we've got, in today's day and age. It's that sort of state the obvious attitude. Like, of course there are good people among them all. Like, of course there are. I wasn't aware that was something which they actually had to do, to be perfectly honest. So that does surprise me.
Yeah, Marty Bergman, the producer and the guy who really worked it with Pacino, and the origin. We'll talk about the origin later, but he really fought with the studio and with the city of Miami and one of their commissioners, whatever. And it's like that compromise was that line. So we get to the first scene where it's beautifully shot. It's like it's a continual one shot of Tony being interrogated.
Yeah, well, yeah. And it's I think as an introduction to the character, it's a good introduction. It's a good introduction because you open with a disclaimer and you open with the footage.
Right. The real
you open with all of the actual footage, don't you? And
correct.
That's not nice to see either. Like, it must have been an absolutely awful time, tragic, horrendous, not good. I think everyone can agree with that. That's not what anyone wants to have to deal with in their life. And then you go to the bus scene is after, isn't it? Because he's like, no, I told
bus
you.
Scene is after.
I told him I was in sanitary.
Sanitary.
Yeah.
Just to go off of that, what you said,
I told you to
he's
throw
so-
me in a sanitarium.
and that's the thing with this. We gotta be careful because we could just quote this damn movie the whole show.
Yeah, infinitely quotable.
But you're right. You fall in love with this guy right away.
Even though he's a bad
he's
guy.
got this quick wit. He's got this wit, this charm, this charisma. This it's a natural thing that people, you either have it or you don't. You know, you look at this guy on screen, and you're like, I'm interested in what you've got going on. You know, talk to me. What's happening here? Yeah. You don't hate him. You know, you know something's bad about him. They even say, because there's the marking on his hand, isn't it? It's like, oh yeah, where'd you get that, and where'd you get this scar? And he's like, oh, you know,
I get this scar from eating pussy.
Yeah.
Who the fuck is this guy, man?
Who the fuck is it? No, you're right though. But like, I think the scene that kind of explains who Scarface is, or Tony is, at least the best, is the scene in the restaurant where he's like, "I'm the bad guy. You need me, okay? Because if you don't have me, then you know who the bad guy is." And that's the thing, is you love to root for the bad guy in this case. I don't even know if you're really necessarily rooting for him, but that's the thing, is like you said, he's so engaging. But he is a lot like the Godfather in that sense, to where you're just like, this is a bad guy, but you can't stop listening to him talk, and you want to see what he's going to do or say next.
So I would say, like, obviously we jump way ahead, but it's a great example as well. But it's also like, I feel you're right, but also my interpretation of that is also sort of opposed to that in some regards. Like, he has become that through the capitalist greed that he has succumbed to. And that's what he's referencing. You know, he's referencing everyone around him. Those people, he's in their land now, and he's become the best of them, which is the worst of the worst. Which is when in that regard, in that story, succumbing to capitalism in the line of work that he was in, obviously Coke, etc.
Yeah, because he's all like, "Is this all it is, man?"
Yeah, is this all it is? You know, fucking blah blah blah. You know, yeah, and but I feel like that's that sort of it from the outset. That's not what we see. We see him teetering on the edge, which is a reference to a perfect song in the film. You know, walking along the razor's edge.
Yeah.
You know, push it to the limits, all that kind of thing. And that's what he's doing throughout this film, isn't it? He is walking along that razor's edge of, you know, am I good? Am I bad? Am I?
No, you're right. And I agree with you.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was saying before. It is about his soul, because, not to jump ahead in the film, but like his sister is kind
You've
of.
already done it, Tom.
I know, and I don't mean to, but
all
like
you guys are doing is jumping ahead.
I know, I don't mean to, but like, yeah, you're right. Because the symbolism of his sister is like the good he could be. And then what he's doing is all the bad things. And he has those moments we'll get to later on, those key moments that I think you're right, that it's like, he's always pushing it to the limit. And then once he there's a line he won't cross, but then there's the line he does cross. And then after he does cross it, he knows that's it. There's no going back, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what I get, and what's brilliant about that opening scene, is because it is Pacino, bona fide star, you're already there. You're already sold, right? And it's a nice medium close up, then it's a big close up. It's kind of back and forth, and you really don't see the you just see the bodies of the authoritarian people. It's not until the end where, you know, they're like, ship them to Liberty Town.
But they don't humanize them. That's why. So that's a great observation. Is that the only one humanized in that scene is actually Pacino. He's the only one with a face. Right, by and large, he's the only one that's there. It's the only one that you see, the only one that you actually engage with. The other people are just, they are disembodied voices, and I think
they're the Americans too.
Yeah, and I'd like to think that's intentional as well. You know, like to remove them from the scenario that all you're hearing and sort of seeing of them is obviously their voices plus, you know, the sort of arms and such through it. I think that's a great observation.
I gotta say this: I noticed this time, of all times watching this movie, I don't know why. I don't know if anybody else has noticed this. Charles Durning is doing the voiceover of that one main guy. That's not the actor doing the voice. Charles Durning is actually a very famous actor.
I didn't know. I did not know.
Yeah, and I checked it out after I watched it, because I'm like, that's Charles Durning's voice.
You're like, what?
It's not the same actor. He did the voiceover after the fact, is what happened. But I looked in it. It is actually him. But if you see his face, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could tell the lip sync, the ADR on that sound was like
just this time I noticed it for some fucking reason.
It's because you got the 4K, mate. That's why. 4K.
It had nothing to do with it. It was a sound. But yeah, no.
So jumping ahead, we're a month later. Tony and his best friend Manolo, played by Stephen Bauer, the great Stephen Bauer. His real name is Rocky Echeverria. Stephen Bauer. There you go. They're in Liberty Town. They're in basically they're in huts, made up shacks, but that the government
underneath the highway, isn't it? It's
underneath the highway.
Basically
correct.
A camp, yeah.
Correct. And they got a deal. They got an offer to take out a former Castro dude that killed eventually that we find out is Frank Lopez's relative, right? And you get when Pacino says, Revenga, I know that name. That's political. You see it right there. Because what I got in seeing this film again is he very much has a moral code on who he kills.
Yeah,
they are worth their. If they are worth him killing himself with his own hands. Yeah, because he says, "Tell him, I'll carve up that communist
straight away. I'll do it."
No, and that gets me to my point I was saying earlier when we get to some later scenes. Exactly that. Yeah.
So
and that's why we like him. He has a code. Yeah.
He has a code, and you're starting to see that code, and you're starting to see the relationship with Manolo, with Angel Fernandez, and those three go after Revenga, who actually, what I love is that here's this idiot who gets off the bus, right, and he's like, a target, and he's wearing one of these fucking hats. I'm like, dude, take your hat off and look like a peasant like everyone else.
Yeah, just scruff yourself up a little bit, man. Just scruff yourself up a little bit. Like, goddamn.
So the deal is they take him out and they get their green cards, which is, again, to what you guys are saying, we're happy when he kills this guy. And it's a joyous moment. They're all like they're almost like giddy schoolgirls getting their fucking prom pictures. And, after they just kill someone, I got my green card. You look good.
It's that sort of juxtaposition between it all, isn't it? You've got that awful scene. And it's quite a harrowing scene, actually. Because the camp is in, there's fire, there's people pulling, trying to smash down the fences, and they're really going for it. And it's not a nice environment. You can see it, and then they go in there, they rip through one of the tents, and it's Manny, isn't it? Manny's sort of following him.
Right, they corner him, yeah.
And then quickly out of nowhere, Pacino comes in, goes, rah, 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 and then just walks off, and you're like, whoa. And then
Angel
boom,
comes
straight
from the
off.
other side too, yeah.
Yeah, and then straight off into the hole. Hey, like what?
Yeah, two things about that really quick. They chant liberty. And when Revenga's got the stomach wound, right? And he's walking all fucked up and stuff. And that shot is a God shot. It's God looking down, right? I was just like, damn. And he dies. It's a very nice.
It's well choreographed as well. Like how the whole scene it's set up very, very well. It's a really well shot scene.
And De Palma as a director is a slow burner. He works slow. That's why it went over budget so much. And then you have Pacino, who loves to take multiple takes. That's why it was like over double its budget at the end of the day, as far as when it was made. Because both these dudes just like you said, they set shit up. They worked it. I mean, it's a perfectly made film, like you said. I mean,
it is an absolute masterpiece. It is a masterpiece.
Well, and you have its simplicity too. That's the greatest thing. It's like most great movies. It takes every single trope we've seen in every gangster movie before, but for the first time, we're kind of seeing it more through the eyes of a different lens, because usually we see it through the Italian gangster, basically. In this case, we're finally seeing the same story we see several times over. The immigrant coming in, they usually get their first break by either killing somebody or doing some big robbery to gain the trust of whoever the big boss is.
Yep.
And then they work their way up the ranks, end up killing that big boss and becoming the big boss themselves. And it's just like that same story, but we get it in a new mix, in a new way. Cause like they use the whole Castro bit in the beginning to set up who Tony was, where he came from. And that was something that was going on politically at the time in the papers and in the news. And then you also had, we don't want to do the traditional, basic, gangster Italian stereotypical thing. What's something different we can do? Now, you could bring up the point where, like, nowadays, would they have Al Pacino playing this role? No.
Well, let's get to that later.
Let's
get to that later.
But again,
you bring up, we'll talk about that.
Very interesting
I have questions
point
for you as a Brit, as an American, and then from where I'm coming from, which is wonderful, Tom. So put that on the back burner.
No,
they
but
get
like,
their
again,
green cards.
Anyway,
they get their green cards, and they're working out of this nasty,
dingy diner thing, isn't it? Like
dingy
side.
corner diner. It's not even a diner, right? It's like
a
shack,
hut.
like a
like a trailer. It's like a trailer thing, isn't it? Something like that.
It's like a trailer, right? But I love that
food truck, yeah.
Right. I love that camera scene. The camera pulls out of this image of these palms, and you're like, oh wow, it's so beautiful. And then you see that it's a mural, and you
washing
see
dishes and
washing dishes. Manolo gets another deal where I forget F. Murray Abraham's character, who is the sleaziest of sleazes.
But he's there nodding in the car, like
right. He's like, because he's
what are you doing, man?
Right.
Pops
so
up.
Omar,
thank you. Here we see Tony really like, like he doesn't give a fuck. Like, you don't talk to me. And he reads people so well, right? Because he says later on, I never liked that guy. And you believe him. It's not like he's, oh man, I never liked him. He's like, you're gonna kill me, cool, but I never liked that fucker. And that's where that first scene with Omar is, and Omar is like, this wannabe big shot, has a deal for them, and they quickly, of course, quit the job, because he's always looking ahead. Tony's like, he already knows what he wants.
Yeah.
I don't
think he knows what he wants just yet. So in that scene, because they're talking about money and stuff like that, it's like, oh, we escaped this for this and blah blah blah. I don't think he knows what he wants yet, but it's the taste.
It's when he sees
it's the taste of it.
It's when he sees what Frank has, I think, is when he knows what he wants, or thinks he knows what he wants.
Thinks. Again, this is the thing, is that seed of capitalism that runs through it, from communism to capitalism.
I don't think you guys are wrong.
Because if you look at it, he copies Frank, like everything he does. Like he gets the new suits, he goes after Michelle Pfeiffer, he has a nice place now. He's trying to do all the same moves that Frank does, in
the storyline, a month has passed, right? And so they agree to take this job, but F. Murray Omar is wants to kill him right away, but then his uncle says, "Hey, wait a minute, this guy could do this job." It's like, oh yeah.
But I feel like they know that they're setting him up straight away. I think that's why they're well aware that it's a setup. Like 100%, they're well aware it's a setup. And I think that's obviously what comes down later down the line is when they're a rat and things like that. I think that's why. It never really clicked to me before, but I think that they knew it was going to be a setup straight from the off. They're like, yeah, fuck it, this guy can do it. To hell with it. Maybe that's Omar in my sort of fantasy fan fiction. Maybe that's Omar trying to actually get one over on Frank. You ever think about that?
Could be. I always took it as Omar was setting him up, Tony.
Well, I mean,
but Tony, because I just think comes in at the last minute, or maybe Omar sets him up once he knows that Tony's the one that's going to do the deal.
That's what I mean. I think Omar was working with the other guys, and he was, and the whole deal was they were going to steal the money in the coke, make it look like the deal gone bad, and then Omar would pocket some on the side, and Frank wouldn't know anything better.
Yeah, true.
But I hear what you're saying, because I do think Omar is ultimately in it for himself, which is why Sosa only takes Omar out. He doesn't take Lopez out.
Yeah.
He could easily have taken Lopez out too, right? But it's Omar that didn't pass the mustard, you know. And so yeah, they take on this job, and walking away after they quit their diner job, Manolo's like, "Hey man, he said Colombian, and you went crazy." He's like, "I don't fucking like Colombians." So there's certain people from certain countries that apparently Montana just, you know, loses his shit, you know.
Well, I think he's a racist, period. I mean, he doesn't like anybody, really. Or just doesn't really like anybody. I wouldn't say a racist, but yeah. And he even says it at one point. He doesn't trust anybody but himself, period. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's not ever really clear. Like, why, you know, why does he, you know, we know why he hates communists, but, you know, with Colombians distrusting. So that was just like, I don't know if that was just thrown in there, maybe because Cubans don't like Colombians, but it's kind of a well-known thing that Cubans are, you know, like kind of love-hated by all the other Latin American countries. So I think there was a little play on that, but they go and do the job, which is one of Mr. H's favorite scenes coming up. The chainsaw.
So good. Yeah. It's such a good scene. Like from everything, from them pulling up, like I think it's supposed to be like Ocean Drive, isn't it? I think if I remember rightly.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Correct.
And
that was shot very well. Yeah,
so they pull up in the, you know, in the it is a convertible. Pull up
convertible.
in the convertible.
Yep.
They talk a little bit. You know, Manny stays in the car. I keep calling him Manny. That is right, isn't it?
They do call him Manny also. You're right.
Yeah,
it's
Manny.
Both.
Manny.
It's totally,
yeah. So he stays in the
with
car.
Angel, with the little guy.
Yeah. Stay in the car, talking to women, which is obviously, you know, the sort of the go-to for Manny. And then they walk up to the apartment, and straight from the off, you're like, yeah, this is definitely not right. 100% this is not right. And it just goes like from the, you know, the woman sat on the bed. It just goes from 0 to 100 in an instant. And it's just so well shot, but so harrowing at the same time. So when obviously you know it's all gone down, and then the camera does that sort of pan over to Manny again, just all by the car, like completely oblivious, and you're like, what's going to happen here? Because you genuinely feel that the Pacino's character could actually, you know, is at risk here. Like there's a serious potential that something could happen to him. That's how well shot it is, and I think they've done a pretty good job up until that point of keeping both characters quite even as well. So, you know, if you'd not watched a trailer or anything, you wouldn't know that obviously he survives, because there's genuine tension there. You don't think that Pacino has plot armor in that scene. You just don't. Like I never did anyway. I feel like he could seriously get hacked up by the chainsaw. And you feel it as well when, you know, when his mate gets cut up, you feel it. Oh, the blood going, like it is awful, but so well shot, so well acted. The wriggling and the squirming and the just the little the emoting that he does. It's great. It's everything. It's such a good scene. So well done.
Well, speaking of how it's shot, I feel like it's shot like a scene right out of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and done so well. It is, and the best thing is it's the most controversial scene in the film.
It gave it the egg rating.
Yeah, but the funny thing is if you watch it, you don't see shit. You don't see anything. It's just a blood splatter and the wriggling, but you don't actually see any cuts, and you barely I don't even think they have a scene where any of that right there is probably the closest you see a chainsaw to somebody. In actuality,
yeah, I think so. Yeah, but I think that's why I think that and the fact that it got that rating as a result of this scene is also a testament to how well shot the scene is. You know,
absolutely.
Like you look, it was just a shock. It was harrowing. That's what got it. Like, goddamn, wow.
So, two things about one of your favorite scenes here, right? Is what you said about that camera angle, because Al Israel, the actor that plays, God, I forgot his character's name. The one with the chainsaw turns up the television volume, and then the camera goes to that kind of like those like kind of Miami type of windows where it's like, you know, kind of cloudy, And then it pulls out, and then all of a sudden you're on Ocean Drive, and then you see Manolo trying to literally trying to put his hand up the woman's crotch, who's in a bikini, and he's like, I mean, and she's hot, right? It's just like two different worlds going on at the same time, and you're just like, Manolo, get the fuck up there.
Well, they even do it with the music too. You're right, because there's like just the chainsaw and all that, the TV sound, and then you cut from there to the the Cuban music, the dance music. It's like just a total juxtaposition between the two. And you're right. It's just, because you're right. You're like, get the fuck out. You told you to come in after 15 minutes. If you didn't see him come out, where the hell are you? You know, it's like,
so good.
Well, then the other thing too, Mr. H, is the woman sitting up on the bed. The most phallus looking Latino.
I know. You only have to walk in and go, something's not right here. What's going on? What's going on? Just one look, like, whoa.
I mean, she literally looked like she could have been in like a fucking zombie movie.
But she looked like she was about she looked like she was going to kill him anyway. You just walk in and be like, no, I'm gone. See you later.
Well, when she pulls out that gun and she says in Spanish, "Don't move, you fucking cocksucker," you totally believe it.
Yeah.
You are totally
you do.
Wow. You know,
I
imagine
this movie has the word cocksucker in it more than any other movie in history. I'm sure it got beat I know it got beat as far as F words goes by Pulp Fiction, but cocksuckers in this movie so many times.
Yeah.
Not to mention the Spanish curse words.
God, yeah.
So for a minute, well, Manolo saves the day, right? And literally saves Tony's life. And in that heat of the moment where he knows he's got to go after this guy because he just killed Angel, you know, he tells the little guy, Benny, I think it's Benny, hey, get the yayo. It's on the floor.
Yeah.
Right? It's like he's always the businessman. He's smart as fuck. Hey. And then there's that classic kill scene on the street.
It's brutal. It is absolutely brutal. It's an execution, isn't it? It's an execution scene. That's a good way to describe it. Just straight up, bang, 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 or however many, whatever, and then jump in the car and drive off. Like it's,
Well, I think what's also shocking, and maybe this is part of the horror element, is that the extras there were. I've always thought these were real people who were watching an assassination, watching a murder, because that feeling was just so gruesome.
Well, it's visceral, isn't it? Their reaction, their response, is very, very good.
Correct. Yeah.
It's it's believable. Again, that's the thing. Like the performances are so over the top, and yet they are actually believable for the most part. Like it's the thing is that this film does so well is have very much larger than life characters, right? Which do exist, but they're quite believable. They're quite unbelievable when you meet them, or even if you see them on film like this. But what the film does so well is craft every other character around those larger than life characters to be so grounded, which then grounds the film in a sense of, heightened, in a sense of reality where you go, no, this is real. Like I can believe this. So even though if those performances of those singular sort of over the top people are so over the top, everyone else's performances are so grounded and very realistic around it. It just brings it back to that sort of, this is real. Like I can believe this. This is, happy.
Well, it's a lot like a play in that respect. I mean, even though it is based on a movie originally, and it is a movie, I mean, it does play out a lot like you would do a stage play. In that respect, there's the time jumps, there's the 3 acts that are very clearly defined. And a lot of it's just the interaction between the characters. You don't have, people kind of consider this, like, I'm sure I've seen this in the action section for some dumb reason of video stores too many times as a kid growing up. And I'm just like, where in the world is this an action movie? Because there's really only 2 big scenes of action, and you wouldn't even consider them that. They're over in an instant. And that is this scene and the last scene. So like, again, I mean, I feel like you have a movie where you don't, it's a lot like Reservoir Dogs in that respect, that you don't see a lot of the things you would normally see in a heist movie. You have the same thing here it's giving you a lot of the things you would see in a gangster movie, but it's from a different point of view. It's very, very centered around this character and how they're feeling and how they're interpreting the world, you know, and the people around him and how, you know, this scene specifically is just, you know, it's kill or be killed, of course, but he also knows what it's all about. I think you're right when you said he's going in knowing very well it's a setup. And I think he knew Omar set him up. And that's why I think that's the way the deal was supposed to go. And that's why he never trusted Omar. And then later on, he even says, I think Omar had my buddy Angel killed. See, so that's, so I think that was the whole deal is he was working with the Colombians and the deal was supposed to go bad. And then it was supposed to be a setup made to look, and then he'd get rid of Tony in the process of it all, but it didn't work out that way.
Yeah.
It's because he's not stupid. He's not stupid as much as he plays stupid is what I'm trying to get at. Yeah.
So moving the story, let's jump ahead a little bit. He meets Frank Lopez. He has the money and starts this relationship with his boss, Frank Lopez, expertly played by Robert Loggia. I mean, you talk about an over-the-top, believable performance. You know, so within that one night, they meet, they exchange, then we're introduced to Michelle Pfeiffer. Then they go to the club, and you know they're talking about the rules of the game as far as, you know, never get high on your own supply. They never underestimate the other person's greed.
All the rules that get broken and telegraph the entire movie we're about to see, by the way.
Yeah.
Right. So, so the in there is, you think that's where then he's like, this is what I want?
Well, where does he initially see that blimp in the sky that says the world is yours?
Oh, that's after he kills Frank.
That's after he
That's
kills
the
Frank.
second. Yeah, that's the second break.
That is the moment where he so not to jump around too much. When he meets Frank, that's the seed of the direction of the capitalism that he wants to go down. You know, he's seeing a representation of what he had in his head. He's like, oh, you know, this is what I want. Like, I want something. You know, I want more for myself. And then he sees this Frank guy, and he's like, this guy's an idiot. I can have this. You know, why? If this guy can have this, why don't I have this?
Well, he calls
it's that sort of everyman argument, isn't it? You know, it's that,
I think you're right, because what it is he sees what Frank has. He's like, I can do this, but I can do it better. Yeah, and I know what mistakes Frank's making, so I cannot make those mistakes. But he makes a whole new brand of mistakes.
Yeah, and then so that's planting the seed of you know, this is basically what I want, blah blah blah. And then when he kills him, and he's like, you know, and he sees the thing, the world is yours. That's the moment when he's like, I want it all. That's it. I've succumbed to the ultimate greed. I want Miami. I want everything, you know? Or not even just Miami. I want literally everything.
Well, yeah, and he even kind of says that when he's talking about, you know, we got to expand to New York, LA, and beyond. Yeah.
So in this whirlwind night, right, where they first meet Frank Lopez and everyone, Manolo and Omar's fuck up, he meets Michelle Pfeiffer, and no one wants to dance with her. He's like, you want to dance? And they have the most insane dialogue while they're dancing.
I know.
And honestly, they have some great dialogue. It's afterwards where she's like becomes such a cokehead that it's kind of typical stuff. But she sees him as an
underling,
and he never sees himself like that.
No,
but he also. Oh, go ahead, Mr. H.
Doesn't he even say something to that effect? Like, oh, you see me like this, but I'm not. You know, I'm more. I'm better. I swear he says something to that effect when they're doing the dancing. So just you wait or something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And at the same time,
what are you talking about? Banana boat, man. That's not.
Yeah, I didn't come off on banana boat.
Right.
And like that's the other side of it too, though, is he doesn't really see her as a human being either. He sees her as a trophy.
Yeah.
And that's the whole, like I was saying before, like he wants to be Frank. He wants what Frank has. It's not just down to the job itself. It's the woman. It's the whole shebang.
Yeah.
And that's kind of played out through her, because especially whenever Frank is brought up after the fact, not to jump ahead, but like notice how she reacts and what he's reacting to at the same time. And whenever he is brought up, it's more about this whole deal of I can do it better. I'm better than him, you know, all that kind of a thing. And again, he doesn't really love her. No. We know that's obviously clear, but like, again, and that's why they're kind of meant for each other. They're destined to destroy each other in that respect.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with you. I see it as love at first sight on his end. And there's a lot of charm and humor that they exchange. Yeah. I mean, he makes her laugh.
Yeah.
She's a heartless bitch. You know, she hates her life already.
I think she sees herself as a bit of a trophy. I don't think she values herself.
That's true. That's true. You know, I guess I'll lean more towards that then, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that's there. Don't get me wrong. He wants it all. She's part of it. But there's some beautiful, you know, funny and vulnerable moments that they do share, which is why it makes sense that she goes with him.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. I would agree with you there.
So, yeah. That's that first encounter, man. And again, we jump ahead a few months and to the infamous Manolo lizard tongue scene.
What is that? What is that?
Is that a lizard?
What a great scene opener. What a great scene opener. Seriously, so good. So good.
Well, I mean, I could go as far as to say like the people in Tony's life are kind of representative of different parts of him, right? His sister is his innocence.
Yeah. Good way of looking at it.
Manny is totally his heart, his trust, you know.
It's loyal.
Sort of earnestness as well.
Yeah. And then so Michelle Pfeiffer's character is kind of more of his lust and his want. And then you know, Frank is he you know, and again is more of the greed aspect, and you know, and also Frank is right. Frank warns him of everything that's going to go wrong. That's the sad part of the whole deal, and Frank is kind of the best character in this entire movie if you want to look at as far as, because he's never greedy. He always, you know, he's never really out to get anybody. He does set up Tony near the end there, but before that, but that's because Tony fucks up. You know, like it's Tony's fault. Like, I mean, so it's kind of a thing with Frank where he's kind of the innocent, I guess, in this whole shebang. As bad
he's
as
the most innocent.
Anyway, yeah, the most innocent is the
he's
best
the most
way to
innocent.
put it, yes.
I think definitely the sister is the.
So he kind of represents what Tony could be if he was, in his eyes, soft but a good person. I think
the good-hearted drug trafficker. But no, you're right. I mean, he's got compassion, which Tony sees as weakness.
Exactly.
Tony's got morals, but he's his balls, and he's not He's not a pushover. He doesn't like to see that, especially in men that he's supposed to look up to and work for. He says that. After the drive home with Manolo. He's like, Frank is soft, and then you jump ahead. You know, that's like, you know. But Alvira is going to be mine. He says that. You know, some wonderful writing in this, man. I'm not sure what happens when he goes and sees his sister. I forgot the line, that part in the second act, but the
first time when he sort of walks in there.
Yeah, I'm not sure when.
So his mother is sort of chastising him for you know, being who he was back in Cuba, a criminal basically, and he's like, no, I'm flying straight now. You know, I'm straight. Blah blah blah. You know, and she's like, no, you know, get out of my house, blah blah blah. And then he goes off to his sister, and like, you know, she runs out after his mother goes mental at him. So get out of my house. I don't want this. Get out of my house. Blah, blah, blah. And that's believable as well. You know, like that's a really good performance.
Well, he's all like, I didn't want to come see you before I, you know, got myself, you got my shit straight basically. And, you know, she's like, I don't want your dirty money kind of thing. Cause he tries to give her $1,000 and
cause he's coming with suits and stuff like that. And she's like, where'd you get this? Where'd you get this? Where'd you get that? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And it made, like, of course it's suspect. Like 100%, like, of course. And if you are, if you're in a new country and you're trying to be on the straight and narrow, you wouldn't want anything to do with that, and you wouldn't want your daughter involved in that either, even if it is her brother. You just wouldn't want, like, why would you want that? It's not nothing you want. So it's very believable. But then it's that touching scene where he goes back to the car, she runs out, and she's apologizing for the for their mother and all this kind of stuff, and he's like, just take this, just take it.
I was gonna say,
by yourself, blah, blah, blah.
She takes the money because she is like him. They say that, the mom says that later on.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, she represents everything he was before he became what he is now.
Nice.
Yeah. And Manny even brings that up. Yeah. When he's in that scene when she's bitching and he's like, it's because you're everything that's good in his life.
Yeah.
And Manny kind of understands to a point. Yeah, and that's the thing is,
but then even by being in the remotest proximity to one another, that's the destiny. Because what happens? She goes to the club and starts doing coke, and like instantly you're like, well, they cannot be anywhere near one another. And they just become one another otherwise. So you just can't do it.
Well, in that moment, you can kind of see their upbringing. You can see he was always the kid getting into trouble, and she would follow her big brother everywhere, and mom would get pissed because, what are you doing getting your sister into trouble for all the time kind of shit. Because she knew that she would just blindly, loyally follow her big brother.
Yep.
And yet that's where you see he gets his sense of morals was from his mom. His principles. Mom's principles. I mean, that mom was beautifully played, and she was just so real and grounded that when we were rewatching it, Mrs. Slant was saying that's the best performance in the movie. I mean, granted, that's coming from Mrs. Slant, but I thought that was interesting that she pointed her out, because it's an important scene as far as just establishing history. We finally got to get a little bit more. Rounds out his character, and then of course his blind jealousy when Manolo brings up how beautiful his sister is.
Yeah, and that's like it is instant, like it's on a dime.
Cue the Marauder synthesizer.
And this is the one place where I don't know whose idea it was, if it was Oliver Stone's, if it was De Palma's, to go into this. Like,
so we mentioned this, didn't we, about it being a remake
before we started recording.
This is one of the things which is just a shame that they carried over. It's this like have the sister, like, absolutely 100%,
right? That
strange overt sexual sort of desire, sort of protection, sort of it's just way too much. And they must have known what they were doing. They must have known, because everything else is so expertly crafted in this film that I can't.
I have a theory, but I want to save it to when we're done.
Okay. I just can't possibly bring myself to think that they weren't aware that would have come across like that, basically.
Because
it's a shame, because it's too much.
I've only seen the original once, but like I was saying before we started recording, that's one of the few things that's actually carried over from the original. But even there, it's presented as, it's not a jealousy thing; it's more of her honor. And she would, when in the way the scene plays out, is very similar in the original, but it's more like she says, we just got married, we were going to surprise you. Like, that line is right out of the original. Yeah, and that's as far as it goes. It was like, oh shit, he thought he was his sister was being dishonored by sleeping with his secondhand man, and all that kind of shit. And I get it. They maybe wanted to amp it up a little bit, but it wasn't necessary. It really wasn't.
But again, like you're taking it a step towards the end of the film. But even in that moment when, Manny, his best friend, is just like, oh, she's beautiful. And he's like, bah, you don't ever touch her, blah, 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 like all of this.
That's not for you, man.
Much. That's too much straight away. I think that's too much. It's not in the realms of just basic normal jealousy and protection. Like it should
have been more like the original, because if I remember right, he's like, you need he kept saying stuff like you need like a banker or a doctor to marry or a lawyer, not some gangster kind of thing, like is kind of the implication. And that's all they really needed to do was like, yeah, I don't want you to be a part of this fucking world. Even if it's marrying my best friend, I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want you to be a part of this. You know, and that's
I
all.
wanted to go quickly back to the scene real quick before with the lizard scene really quick.
I watched this.
Because he you know at the end of that scene after the woman slaps Manolo again, he gives him the sage words that everyone repeats: first you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the women.
But right there, that's enough to set up with Manny that you know he's a womanizer, so that should be enough. Just you don't need the extra stuff to get it back to that. Yeah. But no, that's a great scene too. That's one of the more iconic scenes as well, and it's both funny and poetic at the same time.
Both funny, yeah. And I think it's important because in Act 3, he's lost his complete soul. So it's like he's lost his humor, he's lost his empathy, he's lost for the few people that he really cared about, which was Manolo, his wife, his sister. That was it. Yep. Moving forward, they go to Bolivia. Is it Bolivia? Where they meet Alejandro Sosa, who has to be one of the. Go ahead.
I think you're right. I think it's Bolivia.
He has to be one of the greatest drug lord performances I've ever seen. I've always been mesmerized by the actor that played him. In fact, I was so sure he was a Latino. I was shocked when I found out yesterday that he wasn't. And it just goes in.
Doesn't have one of the best voices ever.
Oh my god! Well, he's a theater actor,
so good,
which makes sense.
So good.
He's like, he was one of the original members of American Conservatory Theater, and it makes sense because the guy was so regal. Alejandro Sosa. So they show Scarface. Tony goes on the trip with Omar, who's just a complete sleaze. The last of the sleazeball there, as far as his last stand, shows in the operation, and you can already see the Tony and Alejandro's connection.
You can see the cogs starting to turn as well. For Scar, for Tony, you can see the cogs starting to turn. We can do this. I need to get in here with this guy. He also sees Sosa as a bigger connection to what he wants out of life than Frank. That's it. Like, I think that's part of it. He sees this guy as bigger than Frank. He wants to be more like him as well.
That's where he starts getting greedy.
Yeah. Well, that's what Frank says to him as well. Like, how can we do this? Blah blah blah. Like, it's all about greed. And the music is so good in those scenes, showing of the compound, the facility, and just how beautiful it is. And he's like, my only problem is, who could buy it? We can make it all, but my only problem is, getting it out. It's like, Jesus Christ, like, come on, that's your only problem. Like, all right, cool, good. Oh, so good. And then they sat there having tea, aren't they? They're sat there having like tea or coffee or whatever.
So we also get glimpses of the two shadow figures that are Sosa's henchmen.
There's the sort of bold guy, isn't there?
Right. One is called Shadow.
The guy in the glasses.
And the guy in the glasses is Skull. Shadow is played by Mark Margolis, I believe, who is in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul as Grandpa, the Latino grandpa.
Yeah.
I mean, an amazing actor. Again,
he was also in Snowpiercer, I think, wasn't he?
He's in everything. Yeah. So they find out that Omar is a piece of shit, and they take him out, and it's a great scene because it's like, well, why don't you Tony could stay. You can go take my private jet. You'll be back for lunch tomorrow. And Omar's like, sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
up in a helicopter they go. Down he goes on a.
Well, yeah, because he thinks he's going to go tattle to the boss about Tony, because that's been his whole thing, is he's been jealous of Tony the whole time since day one. And yeah, like, and that's the scene I was talking about before too, where he brings up like, I don't like that guy anyway. I think he had my buddy Angel killed.
Yeah,
insinuating that he had something to do with that going wrong. So yeah, like getting Omar out of the way is also another hurdle for Tony. So he actually did him a kind of a favor.
Oh, excuse me. Just FYI, people, it's quite late here in the UK, as you can probably tell from the back there. Completely.
Now you're gonna get yelled at.
We are time traveling with Mr. H, and you're getting this probably, yeah. We really appreciate it as well.
Well, it's just a time zone difference. That's all.
Yeah,
this is the
it's crazy,
the beauty of YouTube. But it's such a great scene, and then what? Then he's back, isn't he? He's back talking to Frank, sort of laying down the deal. And that's the fall of Frank, then, isn't it? I guess.
Well, he just can't believe that Tony did this, and like he's just like, we can't handle this. And then, like you said, as far as the greed. So from there, I'm trying to remember. I think we skipped another Elvira hangout scene. In fact, we did.
The car
scene.
Yeah, we missed over the car scene, but yeah, that's kind of bleeds into the other stuff. Yeah, we talked about their relationship.
It's just that sort of building, the playfulness. But I think that really does show the elements of Tony still being sort of playful in that time, still really trying to get what he wants, but also, he doesn't. I don't think he views her as an object at that point either. He doesn't see her with any level of contempt. He still only has eyes for her. And it's that sort of love.
Yeah, but he still kind of views her still as a prize. That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, to a degree, but I mean, a lot of people would see their loved ones as a prize because they feel lucky to be in their presence.
Yeah,
and I think you get that sense, because if you look at how he is with anyone else in the film, like absolutely anyone else, he's the man. With Elvira, he does lower himself. He does allow himself to be spoken to like absolute garbage by this woman. Because the dialogue is quick wit, like it is funny, but she does speak to him like crap. And no one else in the film does he take it from but her. So as much as, he does view her as, a prize, it's still that love. It's that sort of misguided love, I guess you could say, in some regards. That's how I would interpret it anyway.
No, I don't disagree.
It's in that's part of the banter of, because in all, for lack of better words, that's their what's the word I'm looking for? Their courtship. It's their courtship. and he's doing this right underneath fucking Frank's nose.
She says something to that effect as well, doesn't she? I swear she does.
Yeah, she sure does. But
look, isn't it when he goes to Frank's house and she's out there? She's out by the water, by the pool, and he's like, oh, she's like, Frank's gonna come home soon, and he's like, I don't care, like I'm not here for Frank, I'm here for you, like, I'm gonna marry you or something like that. Right.
So that scene in the car was earlier, in fact, right after the Monona lizard scene.
Yeah.
Jumping after Bolivia, there's that scene where he comes to the house, and
that's him getting really ballsy at that point.
I think he knows that what's going to happen.
Yeah, and this is where he also starts to talk back to Frank as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see that Frank's a little heartbroken about that, man.
Well, because he took him under his wing. He took him under his wing. He created Scarface. Without Frank, there would be no Scarface.
Yeah, and that's where I feel like I was saying before, is like he's a bad guy, but he's still probably the most innocent of all these people, because even in the scene where, not jumping too far ahead, but in the next bit here where we lead up to Tony's taking him out. Really is like if Tony was really that worried about just having Michelle Pfeiffer's character, Elvira or whatever, I think once he goes, you can have it all, Tony, you can even have her. he probably wouldn't have killed him if that was really the case. Once Tony does that, it's kind of that's where Tony kind of turns to a darker side. Because before that, I still think because you're right, like he's still kind of emulating Frank in a lot of ways, but then he kind of takes this devilish turn right around there where it's just like there's no going back now kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that leads right up to that scene you were talking about, Mr. H, where he goes out on the balcony and he sees the blimp.
The world is yours.
Exactly. And that he goes past that point where Frank was
American.
Frank was like, you can have it all. You can do all this great stuff and you don't even need to be a big peacock while doing it. You know, because he's like, you're getting too greedy. You're getting too ahead of yourself.
But
this is why you
wants
get popped.
that. He wants it all.
So
he wants to be known for it as well.
After he gets kicked out from Frank, right? There's a lot of shit that happens at the club, right?
The setup of the assassination and all that shit. Yeah,
the setup of the assassination, seeing his sister taking the scumbag out. That was hilarious. Yeah. The Manolo sister scene because he's driving her home. Tony's still at the club by himself with some dudes.
And they even set Richard scene up too because his wife says, if anybody wants to kill you, they know right where to find you.
Right. Because Elvira's there. You're right. I mean, there's so much that happens at that second club scene. And then Richard Belzer is doing his stand-up routine. And then comes in this weird guy with a big mask, and he's a comedian.
Yeah, what was his name? I didn't get that.
So I think I have is it kind of poking fun at like a Puerto Rican stereotype or something like that?
It's what it is. Yeah, it's a very Latin American.
Because at first the scene set up to me like you're supposed to be distracted by that in this way, like because you see it and at first it happens and everybody's laughing in the club except for a few various people. It's Tony and the two assassins. But at first, the way you look at them, you're thinking, oh, maybe they're upset because this is something that's stereotypical. And then when they pan down, you see, oh no, they're here to kill Tony. I could be wrong on that.
Clown.
No, you're right. It's basically like a clown, like a Latin American clown.
Octavio the clown. That's
Octavio. Octavio the clown. That's what it is. So that's going on. And then the brilliant film work there, as far as
no one can fault De Palma for his use of the camera at all, ever. Like that guy can make anything look amazing.
Yeah,
and pull you into a shot like that.
Yeah, man. So they put the hit out, right? He makes it out. And he gets he recruits his men, which includes Nick the pig, the big fat guy.
You want a job?
No, that's Ernie. That's
Ernie. That's right. Yeah.
But Nick the pig is like, there's a great scene because it's like you just see the back of Al Pacino and he's talking to Nick the pig. You're gonna call at 3:00. You're gonna say we fucked up. He got away.
Yeah.
Okay. Repeat that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely the Luca Brasi of
right.
Movie.
and then there's one of my favorite scenes is the death of Frank Lopez, which is the end of Act 2, which is the end of.
But it also brings in the police again, right? Because the police were at the club. They were speaking to Tony. Oh, you want this? Blah blah blah. You got to give us a cut. You got to work us in. Is it ever really take her on vacation? All this kind of stuff.
Is it ever really established that he is really a cop?
No, it's not.
See, because that's what Tony even says in that scene. He's like, "Whoever said you was, man."
Yeah. But I think it's
because I think it was Frank setting him up. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. But then so he walks into the room. And the tension, you can cut it with a knife. Just walks in. It's like, oh my God, what happened to you? So, oh yeah, well, sits down. It's just, and it's that. Well, you've got the picture. Check that picture. It's such a good picture because it says everything. Like that's a man on the absolute edge right there.
He's got nothing left to lose.
He's just sat there and he's like. Yeah, his whole world is turned upside down in this moment. It's so good,
but it's on the upswing. That's the difference of later, though. Because this
again,
scene is
too-
all mirrored later on. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Paulie. My bad.
No, he up until this point, Tony Montana in his world, right, in this story, has done nothing wrong.
Fine, yeah, he's just been plodding along, doing what he's supposed to do, trying to help people out,
Right, and he says it, Frank. I've done some side deals to make extra hustle,
but I
never
you or
turned on
something
you.
like that.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh man, this guy's so loyal, and you already know all he has his word and his balls. He's that speech to Sosa. That's all I have in life is my word and my balls, and I don't break it from nothing.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And I think this is the first mistake Tony makes, and it's not like a mistake. Like, yeah, I mean, he was obviously going to kill Frank no matter what, and Frank did him wrong. But I think if he would have let Frank go, that would have. I mean, it's not going to happen for the story of the movie, but I mean, that's where he had a bit more of a redemption, and that's what I was saying before, because even Frank's like, you can have it all. I'll just leave. I'll disappear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, you want Elvira? I'll give you Elvira.
He could have just kind of kept a little piece of his soul yet at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it was so pathetic, and he even hated that more that Frank got on his fucking knees.
Yeah.
Oh my God. He might have respected if Frank said, "Yeah, I fucking did it. You were wrong. You were I had to take you out."
Yeah.
Because
remember my words at the start.
Well, Tony was wrong in the sense that he shouldn't have been fucking around with Elvira. He shouldn't have made that deal.
Well, he was fucking around. Yeah, he was getting greedy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, man. Like you said, stunning. It's so dramatic. And it starts off with Frank laughing on his phone, and then he hangs up really quickly, and you have the cop there, and then of course just he says, "I'm not going to shoot you. You're beneath me," right?
Yeah.
Manolo, shoot this piece of shit.
Yeah, and then he shoots the cop though, or the supposed cop.
Well, yeah. Because he sees that guy as a fucking like one of Castro's commie. Like,
just taking what's yours. Like,
oof.
Yeah.
Nah, don't do that to someone who's fled. Cuba. That's not smart.
And this relief, you're like, fuck. Okay, these guys are dead. And then Manolo goes, "Hey, what about Ernie?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
and the tension rises again. It's like dramatic pause.
Right.
You want a job? Jesus.
And he says, "Sure, Tony."
Sure,
and
Tony.
then little Benny's like, "Hey, you got a job." Yeah. Right? And he fucking gets his, it has to be like Jack Daniels. He says, fuck.
Yeah.
I almost died. I was so sure I was gonna die.
So good.
So Act 3 is the ticket.
We get a montage. Yeah.
Go ahead. Have a montage.
So good. I thought you were going to miss out the montage part. So I was like, no, you got to say the montage is so good. That song, the best. Such a good track. Such a great montage as well. Like if there's ever a montage to show the passage of time and what's happened during those, those months, those whatever, that's it. It's really well done. Like coming in and out of buildings, the purchasing, weddings, bloody tigers, whatever. It's just so well done. Like everything that's happened. You know everything that's happened, and it's got the best piece of music ever. So it's all good.
Right. Well, the thing about it is, it's funny is I don't know if it was in the writing or if it was De Palma's idea in the editing bay, but that would have been the most boring part of the movie otherwise, because it was, you'd be sitting there and waiting for shit to happen. They found a way to make that exciting. It was almost kind of like in The Godfather when they did the newspaper reels. You kind of had to have a way to make that news kind of come across to the audience without making it boring and just somebody going, "Oh, we got a shitload of money." It's like, they made a way to make the excess look like excess, and then the wedding and all these other things happen all at once, plus show, a grand amount of time has gone by here. Because I think we kind of moved from the late 70s into the early 80s at this point by the time. Because the movie kind of begins, isn't it, in the late 70s, if I'm not mistaken? Or is it in the 80s? I can't remember. Or is it like 80
Well,
in the first?
there's definitely a passage of time.
It says it
And-
when the movie starts, but yeah, like by this point we get up to like the actual time the movie is being made.
And
Yeah.
I think what's so important about the montage is that this is the apex of Tony's success, his happiness. You could say was the wedding, right? And like Mr. H was saying, all the all the buying of buildings and hauling money in and out of banks and counting money. But you see the wedding and you see the sister and Manolo look at each other again. I mean, there's just so much good shit going on.
Yeah.
And everyone's fucking happy. And then like him talking with Suarez on the phone, they're laughing. Tony's in his chair looking healthy. There's no coke around.
Mm.
I mean, this is it. This is the American dream. Tony Montana has it all.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
Yeah. Well, the reason I brought up that other part because they do such a great job of showing the time passage through the montage, but I just wanted to bring up the costumes in this.
Yeah.
I mean, they just they great job with just giving so much personality. Because you see Pacino in these outfits and you know exactly what movie it's from.
Yeah.
It's not hard to do. Like that's the thing, and that's a key to you have something that's iconic. Between the suits, each one of them has their own kind of and they do kind of set up how he is throughout the movie too. Like in the early part, it's the more flashy, big collar, brighter colors. Then it gets more. Yep.
Yeah, but it also towards the tail end, his suits are darker.
Exactly, is what I was going to get to.
As in, like, as his soul.
Exactly, I was going to get to is like it kind of changes.
Yep. It's really well done. Really, really, really well done.
And that's even emulated kind of on the poster with the white suit. Kind of going into the black. It it really kind of does show that black and white side of him. And then, because he loses all his kind of humanity again, like you said, because that's when he gets to that end part. He's all dressed in black as opposed to before. But it's still, even just in black, it's memorable.
Yeah.
Like the picture I had here, he's just wearing that straight shirt. And that scene right there. Exactly what that is. It's iconic.
So good. So good.
And also the soundtrack too.
God damn, the chair.
Yeah, and that chair is so cool. And in the soundtrack, to go back to that, like you were saying, Mr. H is great. I mean, not just that song, but all the other songs that are on there too.
Yeah.
Great album.
Yeah.
And it kind of kicked off that 80s soundtrack in a way. It really was with the synth sound. And it's the first one I can remember out of the disco age anyway.
Yeah, I think you got a good point there. To be honest, it's a masterpiece of a film. It just is a masterpiece. Like there's no two ways about it. But so they go from that montage, and then correct me if I'm wrong. Don't they go then into the basement scene where they're counting money, trying to launder some money?
I believe so. Yeah,
and that's the bust. They keep looking at the clock. Why are you looking at the clock, man? Blah, blah, blah. That's what it goes into, isn't it? If I remember rightly.
Well,
I think so.
You're right, but at the very end of the montage, the ominous music, the score takes over from the song, and you see Michelle taking too much cocaine.
Yep.
Which is fucking brilliant, man. Right? The montage and then the ending. Right, and then there's that scene where he's before what you're talking about, Mr. H, is working with Saddlebaum. So Manolo's trying to convince Tony to work with Saddlebaum while Manolo's taking that bath in that insane circle bath.
The whole room, just like it's just so cool. So cool.
Yeah, another very iconic scene.
Epic.
Yeah.
That would be epic. You just see this massive bath full of bubbles, just sat up.
Right.
Yeah, so good. So bloody good. Again, like you know exactly what that is from. You see that, you're like, oh yeah, Scarface. Yeah, okay, cool.
Can we take that moment to talk about that? How influential this movie was on so many different video games, especially Vice City.
There was a video game.
There was a video game, but
Scarface.
But Vice City just like shamelessly rips off this movie.
Oh yeah, 100%.
To no end.
100%.
No, please talk about the. Yeah, like that scene is there's like a scene like that. All the locations are ripped off in even the house, the ending, all the setups. Yeah, being on the drive for the first part of the game, especially, and a lot of the same kind of missions.
Yeah.
So it's very again, but that again just shows how influential this movie was going forward. Maybe that's another reason why this and a lot of other films of that time, at the time, were just like, oh my god, that's just too much, that's just too far. And we look at it now and we're like, dude, that was iconic. I mean, come on, who doesn't love that?
That is so good.
And that's the bedroom right there. So.
That is so. I want to find that place and I want to rent it for the night.
Everyone wanted this. Everyone wanted this, right, Mr. H?
It's so good. It's amazing. Look at it.
It's so opulent. It's just like
it reminds me of like a Roman
Where does
emperor.
he dry off?
Yeah, it reminds me of a Roman emperor. You know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
and
good.
you know what's interesting about this is that he's all alone at the end of the scene because he told both of his loved ones off.
Yeah, well, he's alone in what he's amassed. You know, it's that.
Yeah, and another so many iconic lines in this scene where he's like, "Who put this together? Me. That's who."
Yeah. Oh, it's so bloody! I love this film so much.
I'm just wondering how many rappers
much.
have emulated this and reconstructed their homes and has this fucking bathtub in their houses. And if I sound like a racist asshole, I'll say this: any rich man.
Well, I don't think you're remotely sounding racist because I don't know if it's on the Blu-ray or not, but I know on one of the last DVD releases of it, they even had like a whole documentary of rappers talking about how influential Scarface was.
Sure.
So there you go.
Sure. So, well, we quickly go to his demise. Everything's kind of slowly falling apart, and his paranoia is taken over. He's got the surveillances going on. He's doing
in conjunction with his rising coke habit, though, as well.
Correct.
Yeah,
and he goes back to Bolivia for a meeting.
Yes. It's the meeting that would. It's not linked to his time, is it, that he's supposed to be doing? But it's linked to everyone else. So he needs to do the job so everyone else can still be able to
No,
operate.
it is linked. It is linked.
Is it linked? Would he get time off or something?
Sosa basically says no prison time if you take this guy out. Correct.
Right. Okay, that's what I thought.
Our friends in Washington.
Yeah.
And I just seen it like a couple hours ago.
I just finished
watching it again. Yeah. So no, you are correct in that, and that's why he agrees, because he was saying to his lawyer, it's like, I'm never going back. I am not going back to a prison cell.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
And then they pull up outside the hotel, and it's the actor who's obviously in other things, who sets the bomb.
The shadow?
Yes. Yeah. Sets the bomb underneath the car, and then realize, and Tony's obviously, you can see he's uneasy anyway, but then he sees the fact that there's kids that get in the car, and he's like, no fucking way, man. No. I'm not going to do the accent, but he's like, no, not at all. Not happening. Nah.
No, and that's what's crazy, because that moment is where he kind of almost redeems himself in one fell swoop, but also
he seals his own fate as well.
Feels his own fate. Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean,
it really does.
It's kind of a twofold. And then at that point,
it's quite tragic when you break it down. His moral structure, his moral code.
Exactly.
He can save himself by killing this guy and obviously killing his family as well. And he can save himself, but he chooses not to completely. And he knows that he's going to die. Like, I think he's well aware that he's going to die as a result of that, but he opts not to anyway. And again, it's those small little things that are peppered through this film where you go, I really like this guy.
Exactly.
He's an arsehole, but I still really like this guy.
And that's what I was saying before.
He's redeemable. He does have these things that you go, he's redeemable. Sure, he's done this, but he won't kill kids. Like, he has some moral code, and it's great.
That is until the next big scene where he makes the mistake of killing his best friend.
So so what happens is, while he's in New York and he's doing a lot of blow, and he takes out the Bolivian henchman, he keeps calling to see if Elvira has come back because they've had a big blowout. Say goodnight to the bad guy. That scene happened.
Yeah, the scene we talked about before. Yeah,
Beautiful scene.
Oh God, he's so unbalanced in that scene. It really bothers me. Like, I feel embarrassed for anyone in the restaurant. He's
Again,
right.
So well acted then.
But,
so
they're both so honest in that scene. That's what's so great about it. They both say what's exactly the truth to each one of them needs to hear. You are this vile criminal who will kill people no matter what. And he needs to say to her that you cannot be my wife, and you couldn't even be a parent to a kid because you're so polluted with drugs.
Yeah.
That even if you could get pregnant, it would be a problem, So like they really have, and you're just lost in your excess. Both of them are. And it really is kind of almost weird that when it came out, because it was just before the 80s, we're about to get to this point. So it's really kind of funny how that, and again, that's why I say this movie was a little bit ahead of its time. Because if it maybe even came out 2 years later in 86, it probably would have been like a huge movie, because it has all those tropes of those 80s films and things that were going on in the 80s with the excess and all that kind of stuff, and the tail end of the Coke era probably would have been better for it than right smack dab in the middle of, I don't know.
And that it was, Miami's the 80s. And you're so right. You're so right. It's such a wild looking film, wildly acted, bombastic. So in New York, he's trying to get, it's like, has she returned? Has she called? Then there's a problem with they can't find, the sister has disappeared. So now he's got that on his mind because the mom is called. Tony, your mom's called. So he gets home and does more blow. And he knows he's in trouble with Suarez. Like,
let's be real here. He does more blow in a matter of a couple hours than would kill 3 donkeys. Like, there's no way.
Probably a rhino, to be perfectly honest.
In a rhino, yeah, you're right.
Shoving his face in that.
Like he makes that line with his hand, and he's just like across the fucking desk, and you're just like, no fucking way, he ain't having a heart attack after that.
Well, this is probably one of the more memeable photos,
right?
Yeah.
The mountains of fucking coke.
I love it though. Like, it's such a good still from the.
Well, what's funny is he's so hopped up on this coke, but he has
Yeah.
no life in him. You know, anybody who is that coked wouldn't even be able to sit still, probably. But
well, that's how he's able to get sustain those bullets, man. And he was still alive.
Yeah.
I know,
at the
right?
end.
Well, yeah, it
That
sets
was
up
just
a lot of
nuts.
this coming. Yeah.
So, he goes to his mom's real quick, and the mom is basic. Like, I don't know where she's at. She's gotten like you, and she like loses on him, and she is screaming at him in Spanish, and he's just like, yeah, get off of me. And but he gets the address, and he goes to Manolo's house, and the house he thinks that where the sister's at. Manolo answers, so he's like, what the fuck are you doing here? And then there's the scene that that continues, his blind jealousy over his sister.
Yeah, to the point where he kills his best friend in the whole world. And,
Well, his only friend, really. 'Cause no
Really,
one
his
else
only
likes him.
friend. Yeah.
The other people were afraid of him, or they worked for him, things like that. It is literally his only friend.
Yeah.
It's tragic, absolutely tragic. But yeah,
Well,
that
she
blind.
goes, yeah, and she's half naked, goes into shock, and they take the buddies take them back to the and it's the final. This is the final opus, right? He's back in his office, and that's one thing about Act 3. He talks to him. It's a fucking. He's monologuing in Act 3.
Yeah.
It's just insane. I never noticed that.
Fucking
before.
cockroaches.
Yeah. He's just sat there sort of talking to himself, really.
Very saying Manny. Like I think this is where he realized this is where I've gone too far.
I would say I wouldn't even say it's so much as a monologue as he kind of talks to Manny on the other side, almost talking to God at that moment. He's just like, I fucked up. Can't believe I did this to my brother, my friend, and he knows at that moment that he kind of screwed it all up. And then it kind of goes over the excess with the sister thing. And again, that's probably one of the only downsides of this film. And it's just it could have just been trimmed down a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then whilst that's happening, his compound is being stormed.
Yeah.
And
I think Ernie gets killed first, and then I think because the other guy
back up, because the filmmaking on how these Bolivian fucking Latinos with the long hair and the fucking, they're just anteloping over walls. And
it is
shit.
good. It's very, very good.
And then like half the time it's through the surveillance cameras. So you're like, oh shit, they're getting.
It's really well framed, to be honest. To be able to
absolutely,
it's so well framed. Like seeing them do that on the security cameras, and then you do see some from the outside as well as they're sort of running in, killing a few people. Back to the security cameras because you're going to and from the scene with the sister, because that's why he's not looking at them because he's dealing with his sister. So good. Yeah. So bloody good.
Yeah, because it shows that he's been paranoid this whole time. He had all this shit set up for this exact kind of thing, and then he's not paying attention at that very moment. Yeah,
he is his own demise.
Exactly. Yeah.
He is his greatest enemy. Yeah,
and it is a spectacular ending as we,
Skull comes out of nowhere with a sawed off.
I mean, it looks like the Terminator, doesn't he? Let's be honest.
A little bit.
Yeah. Played by Gino Silva. A lot of these actors are no longer with us. Nice little memorable role. And he goes out like a G, as they say.
And straight into his little pool with the world.
You want to play rough?
You don't play rough. I mean, so many. Say hello to my little friend.
Say hello to my little friend.
So that's Scarface, Mr. H, on a global impact. As a European kid, as a kid from the UK, why the fuck is this movie one of your favorite movies?
Again, but to me, like I don't relate to it in terms of the American dream and all of that stuff. I relate to it on the human story. Like it's such the character crafting is expert, and it is like I've always said it, and I stand by it. It's one of the best gangster films of all time. I don't care what anyone says. It is one of the best gangster films of all time. And it's not only that, but it is the ultimate rise and fall of a man. Look where he came from. Nothing. But an illegal immigrant, right? Literally an illegal immigrant. And then to being on top of the world, having it all, and then just falling completely. It's the ultimate rise and fall of a man. Whether you agree with what he rises to is kind of besides the point.
Very Shakespearean.
It's just great. It's just fantastic. That core story just works on every level, and you could be anywhere in the world and like that story. Relate to that story. I think personally.
So you're a lot younger than me. When you first saw this, it had to have been on a VHS or a DVD, correct?
No, VHS. Like
so how was that?
DVDs. I remember when DVDs first came in. All right.
I'm giving you the benefit there, mate.
The white stuff. All right. The white stuff should be the giveaway here.
Yeah. But there was a whole generation that saved this movie, Tom, and it was your generation, Mr. Ace's generation of the VHS, the hip hop community of the '90s. I mean, they ran with it like Sting's "Every Breath You Take." You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. As far as like in the US, I mean, it had the benefit of coming out during the cable/VHS age, which is probably one of the reasons why most people don't remember the original film because it, got lost in obscurity. And not only that, it's memorable, it's quotable, it's all the things that Mr. H said. Plus, it's just Tony's cool. Tony's fun. As we keep saying, he's a very likable guy, despite his downfalls. It's
that natural charisma.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he and not just him, but every character in this movie is. I think that was one of the points you really hit on to Mr. H, is that every character is just so well drawn. You know where they stand. You know what they represent. You either root for them or feel bad for them or hate them or what have you. Not just Tony, but all of them. And Manny is another one who's a very big part of the film. And you know, he, I believe, is one of the more overlooked characters when people talk about this movie, especially.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I give you that.
and because he is really the big tragedy of the film, because all he's trying to do is look out for Tony throughout the whole movie, and you know, he really does genuinely love his sister and all that kind of stuff. And it would be, you know, the perfect, you know, in a perfect world, Tony would be a lot more like Frank, and he would have been the one to celebrate his you know, his best friend becoming his new brother-in-law, and be happy that his sister has somebody that's not only going to take care of her, but actually does genuinely love her, and he knows is loyal, even though he knows he's a womanizer. You know, it could be in a perfect world that that's where it ends up, and Tony could have got out of this other trouble, but you know, it was these series of events that we see in that last part of the film, and you know, just like you said, it's the perfect gangster movie, even though everything in it is something unoriginal. It is like a Tarantino movie in that way, but it, like Tarantino, it has all those same kind of hallmarks. Exactly. It has the best editing, best music, best characters, even though they sound bombastic and nobody would ever really talk that way. You still buy it. You know, it's like, it has all these things that just work on every level. And it's got this shine about it. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just something about it. It's got to be De Palma's best movie ever, period. It may even be Oliver Stone's best work ever, I'd argue. I mean,
I'll just say really quickly in regards to the depiction of the sister relationship, which takes me back to how my problems with it was that I saw that writing as a writer who used the stereotype of Latin machismo, being so overly protective of the sister of the mother that it kind of crossed a little bit of eeriness, which that doesn't happen in Latino families, right? It's like there's that protection, but you know, so maybe I'm theorizing that because Oliver didn't really understand the culture, that he kind of overshot. So that's probably the only thing for me, that's probably the only thing that didn't work in this film. You know, like it was just like such a it came out of nowhere. You know, her speech and you know, I mean,
maybe I can put it this way. I can kind of see where it was coming from, but it was just poorly executed. Because like you could clearly see through the whole thing that Tony has no sexual desire for her, even though they kind of set it up in a weird way. When shit hits the fan, she's the one that brings it up, and you can see her confusion because of the way Tony acts, and maybe it's because they haven't seen each other in so long, but it was just the execution of it all, and it just didn't really need to even be there.
No, I mean, it was pretty sexual, even when he's hugging her and right in front of the mom, and it's almost like two old lovers that hadn't seen each other in a while.
I mean, they just kind of embrace.
It was all wrong. It's very Godfather. That's how Oliver. Again, my opinion, that's just Oliver not understanding the family culture right there. The mother was perfect. You know, Miriam Colon, God rest her soul, great actress. As much as I have problems with it as far as casting, I'm with you guys that it's just so well done. It's so well over the top that it is a timeless masterpiece. It can never be remade. They're going to remake it from what I hear. And it is infathomable.
With Michael B. Jordan as the Tony Montana character, no less.
But you know, they've done iterations of this already. Black film they've done their crime films trying to be like Tony Montana.
Yeah.
So
it won't work. I don't
it's not going to work, right?
It's not going to be topped. And the problem is like people say, you know, remakes, they're all garbage, blah, blah, blah. Scarface proves that remakes can be absolutely amazing. But because it's one of the few remakes that is absolutely amazing, you can't then remake it and expect that remake to do very well. So, yeah.
I think it'll fall into the same category as things like Ghostbusters and Total Recall. And that is because of what I said before. And that is the original film fell so far into obscurity. And this film was out during the cable VHS age where people remember this movie. Like,
this is iconic.
Exactly. It's hard not to.
Top classic, iconic.
And it's getting better and better I just finished seeing it and it's like better than ever.
Yeah,
The
it doesn't.
performances are
it's
richer.
timeless.
I'm just like, wow. That's just from the little things like him monologuing to himself. And I say that throughout the entire act 3. He's fucking talking to himself.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
because he's
fucking
going
brilliant.
crazy too at the same time. But yeah,
Yeah. So, and we've talked about this before, Tom, and not with so much with Mr. H, and as far as like, casting accuracy, because if we're talking about accuracy, the only Cuban actor was Stephen Bauer.
yeah.
The only Cuban actor. Forget Latino actor. The only Cuban actor. Then you had all these roles being played by Italians and Slovenians and all this stuff, but I don't give a fuck. They were amazing performances. That just
I think it's because they
transcended.
respected it. That's the thing, right? There was respect there. Like, yeah,
they transcended, bro. They transcended. So, I want to thank you guys for coming onto the slant and really giving your time. I mean, this is
I was just going to say to that last note, as far as like it goes with remaking it now, if they were to actually insist on doing it.
No, they are, Tom.
I know they will.
Michael B. Jordan.
I know.
Yeah.
And here's my thing: this is one of those points where I would say, even though this one was a remake, it is so ingrained in the Latino culture that to take it away from the Latino culture, to me, is kind of an insult in and of itself. If they were going to do this, you needed to give it to somebody who would respect it, give it new life in a way, in a new form that makes a sense. And if you weren't going to do that, then just leave it the fuck alone, because otherwise it's just going to come off as a stereotype. And I can see it already. It's going to be bad.
This is a film that does need to be left alone. It doesn't need.
So.
It doesn't need to be remade a third time. No movie needs to be made anyway. It's all a business. I get that, but this is a remake of Scarface is a bad business move. Like that. That's what doesn't need to be made, because it's not going to make anywhere near the money that they think it's going to be pulling in. Because people will just see it as what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And I'm sure there'll be interviews where people say, "Oh yeah, but did you know that Scarface is a remake? So actually, what we're doing is fine." And you go, "Yeah, that doesn't matter. Like, it literally doesn't matter, because the second Scarface is so iconic that you just stop it, leave it alone." So,
yeah, I just wanted to say that. Sorry.
No. It's a great point. I mean, maybe if we were talking like all Latino actors, I think a young Andy Garcia would have been a great performance. But it's Al Pacino. It's
It
Al
is,
Pacino.
but no, that's what I'm saying. The only way I would accept it is if they did it that way. Yeah.
And I'll just say this: I can hear all the different accents when they're speaking Spanish, and they're off. And in Al's case, it's awful. That's why I'm glad he didn't really speak any Spanish in it. But the performances were great. I'll just say that. Benicio del Toro played a Tijuana cop in Traffic, won the Oscar, and yet I could hear his Philly accent when he spoke Spanish. It was a little off. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up. Mr. H Reviews, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on the Latino Slam for the very first time.
Thank you.
First of many.
Say goodbye to our little friends.
Let's say goodbye to my UK friend, Tom from Midnight's Edge. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely, anytime.
We'll see you soon, guys. Look out for announcements and all that good stuff here on the Latino Slant. Wherever you're at, keep your slant fuerte. Gracias.
Come on, y'all. The slant. All right, Paulie, let's go.